The guest joining us now, Maroof Raza, consulting editor, Times Network, Sushant Sareen, senior fellow at ORF, continues with us, and Sinen Ulgen, former Turkish diplomat and director at EDEM, Istanbul-based think tank, is also live with us. Maroof, just the contrast between statements from both countries. Today, when we had Sergey Lavrov speaking, he said it's a long way to go, but the summit has been a milestone. I would like to mention the active role of the Indian presidency that has genuinely consolidated the G20 countries from global south for the first time in history. And President Biden says, at a moment when the global economy is suffering from overlapping shocks of climate crisis, fragility and conflict, this year's summit proved that the G20 can still drive solutions to our most pressing issues. America and Russia both are walking away from this summit, claiming a win for themselves.
Well, that's the best thing that could possibly have happened, because everyone likes to go back home and trumpet a win-win solution that they've brought back home. But there are issues which have dominated how this consensus has been reached. We must give credit to Mr. Jaishankar, the foreign minister, and of course the Sherpas led by Mr. Amitabh Kant, for having worked very hard to achieve a consensus where the Ukraine issue doesn't bog down the entire set of other initiatives that the G20 has come up with. Secondly, the world has realized at a time when the world needs greater connection, consensus on economic issues, there was no need to continue to keep harping on Ukraine conflict and Russia's withdrawal. All the Western countries led by the US have tried like hell. They have not made much of a headway on that aspect. And it doesn't seem that Russia is going to back off very easily, because the conflict has plateaued. People have run out of ideas about what kind of solution to give, which would also appear like a win-win solution. Mr. Lavrov has indicated very clearly the role played by India in his meeting in Jakarta with Mr. Jaishankar. At the same time, of course, under the Prime Minister's leadership, the Indian team has forged a massive win for India with the G20 also now becoming G21 for all practical purposes. And I don't see anything wrong with it, because the African Union is a large group of countries with a lot of potential, with a lot of hope, but they've been ignored during the pandemic by the West, which was floundering for leadership and for answers to their own problems. So India has come and taken that space. I would only suggest that every Indian analyst, Mr. Sushant Sareen in the lead, should come up with solutions which India can now exploit. This African Union and Global South partnership with India to provide India a new leadership role. Because the UN, as we know, is a defunct body, and it has shown its absolute timidity to be unable to do anything. And here is a chance when the world is at a cross-turning point. Mr. Modi and his team have referred to it again and again to create a new narrative. Here is a new narrative that has come out of the G20. Let's exploit it as a country. Let's all of us put our shoulders behind it. This could be India's great turning point and great moment in new geostrategic history.
I want to play out for our viewers, Maroof, just a second, more of what Lavrov said, especially about the commentary that is happening from the diplomats in the West. Listen in.
Is unable to maintain an intelligent discussion. All it can do is demand that Russia stop its aggression and restore Ukraine's territorial integrity. But the United Nations Charter also mentioned, after the principle of sovereignty, the principle of equality and self-effectiveness. As you know, as soon as we start talking about Ukraine, the West is unable to maintain an intelligent discussion. All it can do is demand that Russia stop its aggression and restore Ukraine's territorial integrity. But the United Nations Charter also mentioned, after the principle of sovereignty, the principle of equality and self-effectiveness. As you know, as soon as we start talking about Ukraine, the West is unable to maintain an intelligent discussion. All it can do is demand that Russia stop its aggression and restore Ukraine's territorial integrity. But the United Nations Charter also mentioned after the principle of sovereignty, the principle of equality and selectiveness. As you know, as soon as we start talking about Ukraine, the West is unable to maintain an intelligent discussion.
All right, so some rather sharp words coming there from Sergei Lavrov. Taking a very, very quick break. Back in a minute. Welcome back. A global summit, but some very interesting domestic chatter also that it has led to, especially from the pictures that emerged yesterday from the dinner that was hosted by the president for all the heads of the visiting heads of state and, of course, politicians from within India as well. But a look at the kind of interaction we saw between members of the opposition parties. Of course, they were there representing their states, the chief ministers of various states. There were some notable exceptions as well. Ashok Gehlot could not turn up. Mr. Baghel could not turn up. They said that there was a problem getting clearances for landing in Delhi because of the protocols that were in place. But Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu, who in fact is the chief minister of Himachal Pradesh, he is of the Congress. There's a Congress government he leads there. He turned up. There was M.K. Stalin who turned up. Nitish Kumar was there. Hemant Soren looked quite happy. Naturally, this has led Sushant Sareen to quite a bit of buzz. Later on, of course, Sukhwinder Singh Sukhu also tweeted saying, I was there, I spoke about how we need flood relief, our state has been destroyed. But these pictures are going to lead to quite a bit of non-diplomatic buzz as well.
Yeah, but, Padmaja, it's not surprising. All the show and all the cockfights which happen on television studios between politicians, their interaction with each other behind the, television cameras is extremely friendly. They do, they go out of their way to accommodate each other. They are very friendly with each other. And a lot of acrimony that we see on television screens or we read in newspaper columns or nowadays on social media is not how they interact with each other in real life.
No, but not everyone is friendly. Two CMs didn't turn up. The Congress has been tweeting non-stop saying, there's water in the Bharat Mandapam. Oh, look, dogs are being picked up. Oh, why is there a green screen over here? So things aren't all that friendly behind the scenes as well. Not with everyone, at least.
So that does not mean that there are not petty politicians or people who do not show pettiness in politics. That, of course, happens. There are many people like that. And in some cases, it is a personal kind of there is personal acrimony as well. But by and large, I've always seen that these guys, behind the scenes, they are extremely friendly with each other. They're very courteous to each other. And I think when you are showcasing India, you're showcasing the plurality of India, the diversity of India, the fact that India is a democracy. When you bring in chief ministers from states which are ruled by opposition parties, you bring them onto an international stage. The prime minister is interacting with them. There is this friendliness which is on display. I think it conveys such a positive message of Indian democracy, which most of the Western media anyways is dissing all the time.
And especially, say, imagine if somebody from America visiting or watching this, you've got, a two-party fight there. Here you've got hundreds and hundreds of political parties. You've got, tens of recognized national parties. You've got close to 36 states and union territories, and all of them, at least when it comes to representing India, are on one stage. But there's a bit of a confusion as well, Maroof. Just to clear a point, because many people have been wondering, the politics aside, the fact that Mr. Kharge wasn't invited, to be fair, Mr. JP Nadda also wasn't invited, the president of the BJP, president of the Congress wasn't invited. What generally is the protocol for a dinner like this when hosted by the president for visiting heads of state?
That's a tough question. But let me tell you that, the protocol departments in Rashtrapati Bhavan, the Prime Minister's office, the Ministry of External Affairs, and various other ministries, they have over the years got a pretty much sorted out sense of hierarchy and protocol. Now, for example, the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is number 3 in order of precedence in the country. Very few people know that. But if the Speaker of the Lok Sabha is not invited, so there must be something that we were working towards, which wanted to focus on the event and not on individuals. The second thing is that there was such a wide array of global leadership present out there that they could either eat their meal or shake hands with all our Indian politicians who could have been lined up out there on a lighter note. And finally, and most importantly, the thing is that these events, I think they play a certain amount of, exchanging of lots, that so many will go to this event and so many will go to that event, notwithstanding the presence of the Prime Minister and some of his key advisors. So I think those were the reasons. And I don't think, you see, the opposition, as Sushant has just rightly brought out, we want to basically make a point to their own following on television that, I took this stand and I took that stand. The issue is India, that is now Bharat being promoted as Bharat, but Bharat is also India. The idea of India goes far beyond A or B political party. And we must, as a country, stand up, not just wave our flag on the heights of Kargil and show our national commitment. We have to wave our flag everywhere. And that is the difference I've noticed between, say, the Americans or the French vis-a-vis the Indians. Their national pride, their national commitment to the idea of their country far supersedes the big differences that might be there. Let's take one classic example. There was absolute consensus, both in the United States and France, in the recent visits of Mr. Modi to these countries, on how far they could move with India. They're now all competing with wanting to be on the good books of India and exploit the opportunity that India gives. And last point, look at all the Chinese big events. They're so boring. They're so insipid.
Yeah.
Everyone has the same suit. Everyone has the same smile. And everyone raises their right hand and not their left hand, regardless whether they're a lefty or a righty. Now, that is the difference between the vibrancy that India provides, the the diversity and the intercultural mix that this country provides. Now, it's your call. You want to take it or you want to run it down. History will not judge you kindly for letting your country down.
100%. You want to focus on all that's good and great that's come out from the summit with India at its head, or you want to focus on mere khane mein masala kam tha. It's entirely up to you. But well, to each his own. We're just getting, in fact, another reaction. The UK has endorsed India's G20 template, a reaction coming in from British envoy to India. Let's quickly listen in.
As the Prime Minister and Minister Modi depart from India, congratulations to the G20 presidency and the G20 summit, which has been ambitious, inclusive, determined and action-oriented. A huge thank you to all of those involved, to our Indian hosts, who once again have shown Atiti Devo Bhava. Bahut dhanyavad. As the Prime Minister and Minister Modi depart from India, congratulations to the G20 presidency and the G20 summit, which has been ambitious, inclusive, determined and action-oriented. A huge thank you to all of those involved, to our Indian hosts, who once again have shown Atiti Devo Bhava. Bahut dhanyavad.